עץ חיים היא, למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה, דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיך שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
Welcome everyone to Shalvah this week, and yes, in honor of the approach of biSh'vat, we are looking at Eitz Chaim Hi, tree of life, and these words, of course, that we sing when we return the Torah to the Ark. The rabbis said these words apply to the Torah, that the Torah is a tree of life, but in the source text in the book of Proverbs, they actually apply to wisdom, chokhmah, wisdom, and the rabbis equate Torah with wisdom, but the original context is wisdom. And it says wisdom is the thing that is actually the tree of life and makes us secure and happy. And I was particularly interested today in the verse that comes after, which says, its ways are ways of pleasantness and all of its paths are peace. So the thing about the ways, even the ways of Torah, and certainly the ways of wisdom, would we really say that all of those ways are pleasant? Some things about Torah are really not pleasant. It's one of the things we find when we study Torah is that it's not all designed to make us feel good. And we have a lot of parts of Torah that challenge us, that are unpleasant to read, that are maybe teaching us negative lessons, like don't throw your brother in a pit. So in what way is it all a way of pleasantness? And similarly, how are all the paths peace? Because the Torah doesn't only talk about peace, it also talks about conflict. So I was also thinking about our ways and our paths that we walk in our lives, which we hope are in the path of Torah, but also the ways that we walk are not all pleasant, and the paths that we walk are not all full of peace. So what is this verse really trying to do? And what are the rabbis trying to do by holding these verses up and saying, this is the way to Torah, this is the way to wisdom? And what I was thinking this week was that the wise way to walk, or maybe even the way of Torah to walk, is not when we only walk in pleasant paths. It would be so wonderful if we could all spend our lives walking in pleasant paths and paths of peace, but that's not realistic for our lives, and maybe even that's not experiencing life in its fullness. But the way of Torah and the way of wisdom is when we walk those ways with all of their difficulty, with all sometimes of their hardship and unpleasantness, and with all of their lack of peace, are we walking them searching for pleasantness, searching for peace, trying to find the peace that's not there on our path, trying to see how we make even the most difficult path a path of peace? How do we make the hardest way that we walk somehow pleasant? Find the pleasantness in it, find the peace in it. And when we think about people we might know in the world who we say are wise people, I think one of the things that we can identify about them is that when things happen, sometimes bad things, they don't seem overly rocked by those bad occurrences. They seem pretty steady. And I think it's because of this. This is the part of their wisdom, is knowing that just because something difficult has happened, that doesn't mean that we can't find pleasantness in it. And just because we're walking on a difficult path, that doesn't mean it's not going to lead us to peace. And we have to keep those goals in mind, those overriding goals, as we walk through our lives on whatever path that we're walking on, because that wisdom could carry us through. That wisdom of seeing that there can be pleasantness on a difficult path, there can be peace on an upsetting path, there can be ways that we find our ways back to God, where it says, return us to you, God, renew our days. Our days can be renewed, and we can feel like we're walking with the divine, even when our path has been difficult. And so as we're thinking about the approach of Tu biSh'vat in the month of Shvat here, to think about that, the wisdom of that tree. Even the trees that we see, right? They don't turn tail and run when something bad happens. They stay with it. And when we're walking on our paths, we too can have that kind of wisdom that doesn't rock us, but allows us to sway in the breezes.
So I invite you to find a comfortable position, whether it's seated or reclining, and to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that, or to just softly gaze a few feet in front of you, lower your gaze. And when you're settled, just notice all the points of contact between you and the floor, or you and your chair. Wherever you are, just feel your back against the chair, your seat, your legs, your eyelids over your eyes. Feel your clothing touching your skin. Notice your rib cage expanding and contracting with each breath. Your belly moving with each breath. And do a gentle but quick body scan, starting at the top of your head and moving down all the way to your toes, and just pause where you notice any tension, maybe at your eyebrows, your jaw, neck, shoulders, back, belly. Anywhere you're holding tension, invite it to release. If you lose your focus, just bring your attention back to your breath or your body and continue scanning down to your toes. When you finish scanning, just notice how it feels in your body a little bit different after you've released that tension. And invite more tension to let go. Noticing your surroundings, noises, smells. Not reacting to them or creating a story about them, but just noticing. If you have any aversion to anything in your surroundings, just note that. And try to ease around that aversion, melt it away. Noticing thoughts. Noting what kind of thought it is. Planning. Worry. Remembering. Noting it and letting it go. And coming back to your anchor of either your breath or your body. Using your breath to continue to release tension. Using awareness of the body to notice where that tension is still holding on and inviting it to let go even more. If any strong emotions swell up, just acknowledging those, you can note it. Note whether you have any aversion to those emotions. And try to melt that aversion away with some loving kindness towards yourself and some compassion. Returning to your breath or awareness of your body. Keeping yourself anchored in your breath and awareness of your body and the points of contact. If you get lost in a story, gently bringing yourself back. Continuing to sit with your breath. you hear noise in the room and you find it distracting, you can use that as a way of coming back to the present. As soon as you wake up to the distraction, you're back in your meditation. So many moments are unpleasant, but when we stop and notice how we're feeling, we see where we are. From that point, we can begin the journey towards more pleasantness. Noticing if your body is feeling more relaxed than when you began. Noting the quality of your breath, whether it's changed since we started this meditation. Noting any increased pleasantness. And remembering that your breath is always available to you as a way of calming down and relaxing and increasing the goodness in your life. And when you're ready, you can give your neck a gentle roll and gently open your eyes. You can do a little twist. Thank your body, thank your breath, and thank yourself for creating space for this mindfulness and awareness, and for taking care of yourself. And we'll chant this beautiful melody. It's such a treat to sing before we go. Eitz Chaim Hi, Lama Chazikim Ba, V'tomchecha Meushar Derachecha Darchinom V'chol Netivotecha Shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh yameinu kekedem. Eitz Chaim Hi, Lama Chazikim Ba, V'tomchecha Meushar Derachecha Darchinom V'chol Netivot
As we move into this week and this month of Shabbat, the time of looking at the trees and the paths and nature, hope that we can return to a place of pleasantness, a place of peace that can help us get through even the most difficult moments in our path and return us to the place that we can renew ourselves as we know we have before.